Hello everyone, welcome back to this session of the Umeed NEET English 2025. So, today we are going to do our next chapter, that is practical chemistry. Basically, it's not a chapter but the complete practical chemistry which we are going to have in our NEET exam 2025. Now, the one part is the additional content, that is your salt analysis. Previously, the salt analysis used to be the part of our practical chemistry only when we used to be in the grade 11th and 12th. So now NT has included it over here as the additional content, that is your salt analysis. Besides this, we will be doing the test for the different various functional groups which we already did in our organic chemistry chapter. So it is going to be a quick recap of those functional groups over here like the carboxylic acid, alcohols, amines and so on. Besides this, we will be doing a very small part of our grade 11 first chapter which we have, that is your quantitative and qualitative analysis. So, in this particular lecture, we are going to cover the complete practical part of our chemistry, whether it is your organic part or your inorganic part. Okay, so let's see that what all things we are going to do over here in this particular chapter. The very first thing which we are going to do over here today in this particular lecture is your quantitative and qualitative analysis. Okay, now what is the meaning of the quantitative and qualitative analysis? Whenever we have any organic compound, the organic compound, what definition we have learned is what? That organic compound means that there is the presence of the carbon and the hydrogen element. But sometimes what happens that besides the carbon and hydrogen, we do have the another elements also, like you can have the nitrogen, you can have the sulfur, phosphorus or halogen or oxygen. So, what we do, we find out the quantity, that in how much percentage do we have that particular element in our organic compound present. Another thing is qualitative. Now, if I am saying that this is an organic compound, it means that there should be the presence of the carbon and hydrogen only, isn't it? But in the case, what happens over there, that besides the carbon and hydrogen, I am having the other elements also. So that particular thing is going to tell me the quality of my particular given compound. Then we are going to do the salt analysis. Now, salt analysis, when we are saying salt analysis means what? That if we say any particular compound as a salt, salt means that it is going to have the two different parts. Now, what are the two different parts? One is the cationic part and another one is anionic part. You all might have done also in your grade 11 and grade 12 practicals also this particular part. So, salt analysis means that salt is having the two parts which we have done in theory also, in practical also, that is your cationic and anionic part. Now, what happens that whenever we have any particular salt or if anything comes, what we do? First we do the physical testing. Isn't it? Physical testing means that you are just going to use your sense organs like your eyes, you are going to use your nose, you are going to use. In this particular case, of course, we are not going to use our taste buds over here because it could be quite risky over here. So, what we do, we just see that whether it is amorphous, whether it is crystalline, fine powder or it is white color, green color, pink color, whatever it is. Then its smell is coming like a rotten egg or like a fish, or it is a suffocating smell it is giving, whatever it is giving. So, such type of the testing we do. After this, what we do a wet test also, we do the further confirmatory test also. If I feel like, say suppose if I am having a certain rotten egg like smell, so what I will be like this, maybe sulfur is present. Now, maybe I have to confirm, so further what I will be doing, I will be doing a confirmatory test for it. Isn't it? So, all these analysis we do under this section, that is your salt analysis. The last part which we are going to cover is the detection of functional groups. Now, when we are talking about the detection of functional groups means what? That whatever the organic compound is present, it is going to have any certain functional group. Say suppose it is alkene only. So, what I am going to do? I am going to do the test for unsaturation. If it is having the alcohol, I am going to test for the alcoholic group, that yes, this particular test confirms that my particular compound consists of this particular functional group. So, and these all detections we already did in our chapters also, but still we are going to just recap them over here. Okay. So, these three things we are going to do. Now, let me tell you one thing in a very sweet and concise manner, that whatever the three sections over here, if I talk about my first section, over here I can have the two types of the question. The two types of the question is a statement type question, reason assertion type of the question on the basis of the your qualitative analysis. And that is also from the mostly the part which from where I can get is what, that is going to be your that part, nitrogen estimation. Okay. Then another question which I can get over here is what, the color of the complex. And the color of the complex which we require to remember is the Persian blue complex, red complex, these complexes. Besides that, two types of the numerical. The numerical is going to be based on the Geldahl's method and Dumas method. These two numericals are very frequently, means whenever you are going to get a question, you are going to get a question from here. Otherwise, I can expect a question in a rare cases from a Carius method also. Okay. Then salt analysis. In salt analysis also, like over here I am going to tell you the complete process, but we have to focus on the complex, that what complex formula is, what is the color I am getting, and the group reagent, because the question can be asked like this, that okay, this is your group 1 element, so what is the group reagent? This is your group 3 cation, so what is the reagent, group reagent? These two we have to focus. Detection of the functional group, of course in the case of the detection of functional group, we have to focus on the colors and complexes only. Okay, so let's start over here with our lecture. So first of all, as I have told you, we will be doing a quantitative and qualitative analysis. Now before moving ahead for the quantitative and qualitative analysis is what, that as I told you, that if I am being given with any organic compound, now any organic compound means that it is going to have the carbon and hydrogen. Organic compound means what, that we say that it is going to have the carbon and hydrogen. Now besides the carbon and hydrogen, I am having a possibility of having any other element also. Now any other element, as I told you earlier, it could be nitrogen, phosphorus, it could be sulfur, it could be oxygen, it could be any halogen over here like your bromine, iodine, chlorine, any of the halogen. Okay. So directly I cannot take my organic compound and the reagent present in my laboratory and make them react. Reason behind is what, that why I cannot take them directly, because over here the organic compound is what, it is covalent in the nature. Now when it is a covalent means what, the bond is being made by sharing of the electrons. Now the bond, when it is being made by sharing of the electrons, it means what, that it is not going to be have ionizable group. It cannot ionize, isn't it? Hence direct test is not possible over here because it is ionic compound. So I am not going to have the ions, and when I am not going to have the ions, I cannot perform the direct test over here. Okay. Now in order to detect, in order to perform a test, what we do, we make a Lazarus extract. Now this particular Lazarus extract is also known as the sodium fusion extract, or you can also call it as a simple soda extract. Okay. Now over here, as the word is coming sodium, yes, and fusion. Fusion means what, you are combining something. So sodium fusion extract means what over here, that we are going to take a capillary tube. Now what is capillary tube? Capillary tube is a very thin tube, like I can say that the ballpoint refill we have, such a thin tube we have. Sometimes it is being pre-made, which we get from our vendor in such sizes, and one end is closed end. Okay, sometimes what happens that whatever the capillary tubes we have in our laboratory, we take them, we break them with the help of the heat Bunsen burner, we just close its one end. Okay, fine. So basically it is what? It is a somewhat like this structure. This is my capillary tube. Okay, so wait a minute, I just make it also. Somewhat like this I am going to have. Now what we do in this particular capillary tube, what we do, we just add the your organic compound at first. Okay, at first we are going to add the organic compound. After adding the organic compound, what we add? We add a sodium metal. After adding a sodium metal, again add the organic compound. This is the process which we follow over here. Okay, now what you have to do after adding it, just heat it to red hot, like your blacksmither. Okay, the blacksmith do the iron now. So same manner you have to heat it with the up to a red hot temperature, that it should become a red hot. Okay, before doing all procedure, what you require to do? Take a china dish and keep a cold water in that. Fine. Now over here, you are having a china dish over here with a cold water. You are just going to add a water in this. Now what you have to do? Heat it red hot, and this red hot put it over here. Now one thing is very cold in temperature, another thing is red hot. So what it is going to happen? It is just going to break down. Now when it is going to break down, what is going to happen? That after that you just supposed to filter it. So the after filtering, whatever the filtrate you are getting, that is your soda extract. Fine. Now the purpose of heating is what? That when you are going to heat it, at that time what is going to happen? The sodium metal, the organic compound, it is going to melt and they are going to fuse together. They are going to fuse together. And the motive of fusing them together is what? To break down the bond, the covalent bond, and convert it into a ionizable form. Okay, so this is how we make a Lezain's extract. So let's see over here. This is used to detect nitrogen, halogen and sulfur. Organic compounds is fused with dry sodium in a fusion tube, and fused mass after extraction with H2O is boiled and filtered. The filtrate is called as sodium extract, which is used to detect elements other than carbon and hydrogen. Other than carbon and hydrogen. Organic compounds being covalent normally do not have ionizable groups, hence direct test is not possible. Fusion with sodium forms soluble salt like NaCl, NaCN, etc., which can be easily detected. Now, one very important thing and very important question which we get is, this test fails in diazo compounds. This test fails in diazo compounds. Besides the diazo compounds, it do not give for nitro compounds. It is not going to give, and another it is not going to give for the nitrogen directly attach to ring. Okay, so in these three cases this test is not going to give you the positive test. In other cases of the nitrogen, like the aniline case, it is going to give you the test. So this is how we start our detection of the elements other than the carbon and hydrogen. Now, first of all, let's see that if my organic compound is very pure in the nature and it is going to have only the carbon and hydrogen, how I am going to detect that? So, whatever the compound we are having, we have taken that. On heating the organic compound with dry cupric oxide, when carbon is oxidized to CO2 and hydrogen to H2O. Now, if you are having the carbon, then it is going to, on heating with the cupric oxide, means CuO, it is going to give you a CO2 and H2O. CO2, how you are going to detect? CO2 you are going to detect with the help of a lime water, because you know that when you are going to pass a CO2 through the lime water, it is going to change into a milky white. Whereas H2O is detected by anhydrous copper sulfate. Why? Because anhydrous copper sulfate is white in color. When it is going to come in contact with the water, it is going to change into a blue in color. And this method is known as copper oxide test. This method is known as copper oxide test. Okay. So, what thing you have to remember over here, that if I am having a carbon, it is going to react with the cupric oxide. On heating, it is going to give me carbon dioxide and copper. Okay, carbon dioxide, when it is made to pass through a lime water, it is going to give me a milky white precipitate. And hydrogen presence, how I am going to get that? My copper, which is a anhydrous form, which is white in color without the water molecule, it is going to absorb the water molecule and it is going to convert into a blue in color. So this is how I can have the presence of the carbon and hydrogen. Fine, this is. Now, say suppose besides this, I can have the possibility of other elements also. So, let us talk about the nitrogen. Okay. Now, if I am going to have the nitrogen, in that case, what I am going to do? First of all, what I did, I took the sodium metal, I took my organic compound, and if there is nitrogen is present, so it is going to give me a soda extract, which is going to be NaCN. That is a combo of the sodium metal, carbon and nitrogen it is going to be. Now, when you are going to take a soda extract, to that you are going to add a ferrous sulfate and maintain a alkaline medium. You are going to boil it, cool it, and then you are going to add a FeCl3 and concentrated HCl. So, you are going to get a blue color or a green in color. So, basically what is happening over here? If you are having only, remember one thing, if you are having only nitrogen present. If you are going to have only nitrogen present, then your NaCN, which complex you got with a soda extract, it is going to combine with a FeSO4 and it is going to make a FeCN2 complex and Na2SO4. This further reacting with NaCN is going to give you another complex, and that complex, when in that you are going to add a HCl and FeCl3, it is going to give you a Fe4 FeCN6 complex, which is Persian blue in color, and this is important over here, point to remember. This complex can be asked, the color can be asked over here. So in the complete story, what is important over here? This is important over here. How we got? We took a soda extract, we took a FeSO4, then we took a FeCl3 and then HCl, and finally we got this particular complex. Fine. Now moving ahead, if only sulfur is present, if my complex organic compound is having sulfur, then my soda extract is going to look like a NaS. Se means soda extract over here. So NaS plus sodium nitroproside. Sodium nitroproside. Now this sodium nitroproside is what? It is this complex, which is again important and point to remember. Look, over here I am marking the things, and that things you have to focus and learn them. So when it is going to react over here, it is going to give you another complex over here, which is a deep violet in color. And this deep violet color shows the presence of a sulfur in our given compound. Okay. Another test which we can do over here is what? Take a soda extract, put a acetic acid over here and put a lead acetate over here. Okay. So basically when you are going to put a lead acetate over here, you know that lead, your pencil lead, it is what? It is black in color. So along sulfur, it is going to give you a black precipitate. It is going to give you a black precipitate. Fine. So from this complete slide, what things I got? I got to, when I am having only the nitrogen present, I am going to get NaCN. NaCN, when going to react with FeSO4, FeCl3 and concentrated HCl, I am going to get a Persian blue color over here. When only sulfur is present, I am going to get NaS. And with sodium nitroproside, it is going to give me a deep violet color. If I am going to put a lead acetate, it is going to give me a black precipitate of the PBS. Fine. So these complexes, names and colors you have to remember. Now, in case of halogen, now over here your halogen means what? Your X, it could be chlorine, it could be bromine, it could be iodine. Fine. So say suppose I am having the chlorine. So now my sodium extract is going to look like what? NaCl. This NaCl over here. Fine. Now what I am going to take? Now in general I am talking about sodium extract. This sodium extract over here I am having the three possibilities: chlorine or bromine or iodine, whatever you are going to have. Just add a HNO3 over here and AgNO3. Okay. Now if you get over here white precipitate, which is soluble in aqueous NH3, it is going to confirm you the presence of the chlorine. If in case you get a yellow precipitate, which is partially soluble in aqueous NH3, it confirms Br3, bromine. And say suppose if you are having a yellow precipitate which is insoluble in aqueous NH3, it confirms iodine. So in this manner, you can just distinguish that which halogen is present. Okay, white chlorine, yellow bromine or iodine. How you can test it? Further solubilizing in ammonia. Okay. Now you can have a case over here that nitrogen and sulfur both can be present in your given organic compound. When both are going to present over here, your soda extract is going to be look like this, NaSCN. Now as in test for nitrogen, instead of green or blue color, blood red coloration confirms the presence of sodium and nitrogen. So your NaSCN add FeCl3, you are going to get a complex over here which is going to be blood red in color. So this is important over here and point to remember. Got it? So this is how we can have the different elements present in our given organic compound and what all things you have to remember according to your examination point of view in this particular case. Now, nitrogen. Soda lime test. A pinch of organic compound is heated strongly with soda lime in a test tube. If ammonia gas evolves, it indicates the presence of nitrogen. So this test is not reliable since certain compounds like the nitro, azo, etc. they do not evolve the ammonia gas when they are heated with the soda lime. Sulfur, oxidation test. Sulfur can also be tested by oxidation test. The organic compound is fused with fusion mixture, means your sodium carbonate and potassium nitrate. So the sulfur, if present in the organic compound, is oxidized to sodium sulfate, that is Na2CO3, S3O, Na2SO4 and CO2. The fused mass is dissolved in water and the solution is acidified by hydrochloric acid. So when you are going to acidify by hydrochloric acid and you are going to add a barium chloride, on addition of barium chloride, you are going to get a white precipitate of a BaSO4 which indicates the presence of the sulfur. Okay. Halogens. The test name is Bilstein's test. So when you are going to take a Bilstein test, what is it exactly? You are going to take a copper wire. It is going to called as a copper wire test. So basically you are going to take a clean copper wire. It is heated in the Bunsen burner till it does not impart any green color to the flame. So remember this point. Now heated end is dimmed in the organic compound and heated again. Now chlorine gas is what? It is bluish green in color. Whether you are going to get a blue color or the green or greenish blue color, that is going to show you the presence of the chlorine. Okay. So this color flame if you are getting, so it is what? The presence of the some halogen it is going to show you. Now exceptions, organic compounds like urea, thiourea, pyridine, organic acids which do not contain halogens give this test due to the formation of volatile cupric cyanide. So that's why you cannot rely completely over here. It does not tell us which halogen is present. So that's why we do not prefer it. So special test for the bromine and iodine, that is your layer test. Boil a small portion of the Lezein's extract with nitric acid. Add the few drops of your carbon disulfide and then add the chlorine water slowly with constant shaking. So orange coloration in CS2, that is carbon disulfide layer. If orange color layer comes over here, it shows the presence of a bromine. But in case if you are going to get a violet coloration over there, then it is going to confirm the presence of the iodine. Got it? So if it turns orange in color, the layer, then it is bromine, and if it turns a violet in color, then it is iodine. Fine. Next is phosphorus. How phosphorus is being detected? Phosphorus is detected by fusing the organic compound with sodium peroxide when phosphorus is converted into sodium phosphate. Now this fused mass is extracted with H2O and then boiled with concentrated HNO3, then ammonium molybdate is added. So appearance of yellow precipitate or coloration due to the formation of ammonium phosphomolybdate indicates the presence of phosphorus. Now over here, remember one thing, this ammonium phosphomolybdate which is yellow in color, this is important and remembrance point. Okay, this we have to remember. So this is how you are going to detect the phosphorus over here. Carbon and hydrogen. So this is your, now from here, that particular part was your qualitative analysis, that we was looking that my organic compound is being given, and in the organic compound what all are the possibilities, that besides the carbon and hydrogen I can have the nitrogen, I can have the sulfur, I can have the halogen, I can have the phosphorus. Okay. Now the next part of this comes the quantitative analysis. From the quantitative analysis, very rare chances is there that you can get a reasoning type of question over here. The most common question is that they can ask you on the basis of the nitrogen, that is which compound is going to give this test or which is not going to give this. And the more chances is of the numerical over here from the your Dumas method and Geldahl's method, and least chance of the numerical is from the Carius tube method for the halogens or the phosphorus. Okay. So let's see. Now, when we are talking about the carbon and hydrogen, the test name is called as the Liebig's combustion method. In this method, a known weight of organic compound is heated with pure and dry cupric oxide in a steam of pure and dry oxygen, where carbon is oxidized to carbon dioxide while hydrogen is being oxidized to water. From the weight of CO2 and H2O, the percentage of carbon and hydrogen can be calculated. So over here, this is going to be my equation which I am going to get, that is whatever the organic compound I am having over here, it is going to have the X amount and Y amount over here of the oxygen. So it is going to give me CO2 and H2O on oxidation. So if I want to find out the percentage of carbon, how I can find out the percentage of the carbon over here? The carbon molar mass divided by the your weight of the molar mass of your carbon dioxide into weight of carbon dioxide formed, weight of organic compound which I have taken in the starting, multiply by the 100. And if I want to take out for the hydrogen, so your mass for the hydrogen divided by for the water into weight of the H2O formed by weight of the organic compound I have taken into 100. Now the apparatus which I am going to use over here is this. A very simple thing, look over here, that over here in this platinum bowl we have taken a sample. Why the platinum? Because you know that it is a noble metal, it is not going to react over here. And from here we pass a pure dry oxygen, and this is a combustion tube. Now over here we have kept the copper oxide pellets. Okay. Now what is going to happen, that when your compound over here, when you are going to pass a dry oxygen from there and the compound is going to come over here, what is going to happen over here, that if your carbon is present over there, then it is going to convert into the CO2, and if a hydrogen is present, it is going to convert into a H2O. So in this tube, what we did, we dig over here this, if I just look, in this I have taken a calcium chloride. So before taking a calcium chloride, we have done a weighing of a calcium chloride, okay, and we have kept over here. Similarly, whatever the amount of KOH we have taken, we have measured it and taken it over here. Fine. Now what is going to happen? When the carbon dioxide is going to come over here, it is going to pass through it. But when the water molecule is going to come, your calcium chloride, which is present as a anhydrous form, it is going to absorb the water molecule. When it is going to absorb the water molecule, it is going to convert into a hydrated calcium chloride. Now, you are having one weight, which is the initial weight, and you are having another weight, which is the weight which you are getting afterwards. So from there you can get the amount of the water, that is the amount of the water formed, which our formula was saying over here, the amount of the water formed, okay. Similarly, CO2, which is acidic in nature, and KOH, which is basic in nature, it is going to react with the carbon dioxide. So again you can subtract the initial and final quantities. From there you will get the weight of the carbon dioxide formed, and you can put those values in the formula and you can find out the your carbon dioxide and carbon and hydrogen. The estimation of carbon and hydrogen, water and carbon dioxide formed an oxidation of substance are absorbed on the anhydrous calcium chloride and potassium hydroxide solution respectively contained in U tubes. The thing which I have explained you over here. I hope that this particular point is clear to everyone. Okay. Next. This is the most important part, that is the nitrogen, which I am saying again and again that we get a question from here. That is your nitrogen quantitative analysis. So the first method is Dumas method. In this, elemental nitrogen is converted into molecular nitrogen by suitable chemical method, and its volume is changed to STP data, means standard temperature pressure data. Now over here, my compound is containing nitrogen over here. It is made to react with cupric oxide. It is going to give me a carbon dioxide, water, nitrogen and a copper. So percentage of nitrogen, how I can find out over here? By 28 by 22400, that is your any standard temperature pressure, the volume of the gas. Volume of nitrogen in ml, this terminology we have taken in ml only, this quantity, and divided by weight of organic compound multiplied by 100. So this is going to be your formula for the estimation of the nitrogen. Okay. Now the apparatus which we are going to use over here is this, that is the pure carbon dioxide is made to pass over here. You are going to have a cupric oxide gauze which is here to remove the impurities. Then over here you are having a cupric oxide and the organic compound, and then the coarse cupric oxide, and then reduced copper gauze. So basically this furnace is made over here to absorb the impurities over here and other gases. Now when it is going to pass over here, the nitrogen is going to come over here, and this apparatus, complete apparatus is a nitrometer, and this is the mercury seal. So what is going to happen? This is particularly a displacement method, that whatever you are going to collect over here, the level of this is going to come down, and your nitrogen is going to come and collect over here. That is the upward displacement method. Okay. Now whatever the volume is going to reflect over here, that is going to show that how much nitrogen is being formed over here, and we can put it in the formula and we can calculate it. The next method is Geldahl's method. Nitrogen in organic compound is converted into ammonia by suitable chemical method, which in turn is absorbed by initial volume of your whatever the your ammonium sulfate is being formed over here from the organic compound nitrogen. So nitrogen plus concentrated H2SO4 is going to give you ammonium sulfate, which further on reacting with NaOH is going to give you a sodium sulfate and the ammonia and water. So this is how. This particular flask is not your RBF, we are going to call it as a digestion flask, means this is a heating in Jaldal's flask, or you can say it is digestion is going to happen over here. So we are going to take the organic compound, concentrated H2SO4 and the copper sulfate over here. Okay, these three things we are going to take over here. Now over here, this concentrated H2SO4 is going to digest your organic compounds over here. Fine. Now what you are going to do after the digestion, you are going to put the contents of your digestion flask in this round bottom flask. This is basically a round bottom flask in which you are going to add a sodium hydroxide also. Okay, and you are going to heat it. When you are going to heat it, here you are going to have a Jaldal strap. So what is going to happen? The gas, the nitrogen over here is going to come. This is the water. This is basically a condenser, and this is the standard acid. So basically you are getting a ammonia gas, which is the basic in nature. So here you are going to get a standard acid over here, and the neutralization is going to take place. So whatever the volume is going to take over here to neutralize the acid, from here we can calculate it. Okay, so this is how it works. Next is halogen method, the halogen detection, that is your Carius method. Now this method is based on the fact that when an organic compound containing halogen, your organic compound containing halogen can be your chlorine, bromine or iodine, is heated in a sealed tube with fuming nitric acid in presence of silver nitrate. Okay, so it is going to give you of course a silver halide like we have seen earlier from the mass of silver halide formed. The percentage of halogen can be calculated. Now it is going to be common for each and every halogen, whether it is the chlorine, bromine or iodine. Why? Because you have to take the atomic weight of halogen what you have taken. Molecular weight of silver halide means silver chloride, silver bromide, silver iodide, whatever you have taken. Weight of silver halide formed, weight of organic compound multiplied by the 100. So this is your Carius tube. In the Carius tube it is sealed tube over here, and if you look in this we have the another tube over here which is containing a organic compound. So basically Carius method is halogen containing organic compound is heated with fuming HNO3 in the presence of the silver nitrate. Then in the case of sulfur also we use the same. When organic compound containing sulfur is heated with fuming nitric acid, sulfur is oxidized to sulfuric acid. This is precipitated as barium sulfate, and you know barium sulfate is a white color precipitate. So over here the formula is what? The atomic mass of your sulfur by your molecular mass of your BaSO4 multiplied by the weight of BaSO4 formed multiplied by the weight of organic compound multiplied by 100. Okay. Then we have for the phosphorus. In the case of phosphorus, what you are going to form? You are going to form a ammonium phosphomolybdate, and the formula is going to be what? The molar mass of the phosphorus by the your ammonium phosphomolybdate at molecular mass, weight of ammonium phosphomolybdate formed divided by weight of organic compound multiplied by 100. So these few things you have to remember over here. Okay, I suppose over here is the decimal. Next alternative method is what? That is your phosphorus by the Carius method. So in this particular case, magnesium ammonium phosphomolybdate is being formed by the addition of the ammonia and ammonium molybdate. The magnesium ammonium phosphate is washed, dried and ignited when it is converted to magnesium pyrophosphate. So from the mass of magnesium pyrophosphate, the percentage of phosphorus you can calculate, that is 62 by 222 into weight of magnesium pyrophosphate, which is being formed over here, divided by the weight of organic compound which you have taken, multiply by the 100 over here. Okay, so this is how you can calculate for the phosphorus. Oxygen. For oxygen, you know that it is present everywhere. So what we do, we cannot apply any particular method over here. So the simplest thing is over here is what, that whatever the percentage of the nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, sulfur, phosphorus you have got, just add them, and from 100 you can subtract it. So you are going to find out the oxygen. Otherwise the usual method is this only, that method of the difference you are going to have. That is the method of the difference which I am telling you over here. Otherwise, alternative method is a ALIAS method. Organic compound containing oxygen is heated with graphite and carbon monoxide, which is formed, converted into carbon dioxide on reaction. So pyrolysis is being done. So basically you are going to get a carbon monoxide and CO2 over here. Okay. Now the type of the question which we get over here is what? The Geldar's method for the estimation of nitrogen can be used to estimate the amount of nitrogen in which one of the following compounds. Now I have told you that this particular group, if you look, this particular group is what? It is a azo group. So this is not going to applicable. Over here, this nitrogen is within ring. So it is not applicable over here. This is your nitro compound. For the nitro compound also it is not applicable, and this is what? This is aniline. So for this it is applicable over here. Got this particular point? Moving ahead. Next we have what? That in Dumas method for the estimation of nitrogen, 0.25 gram, that is Dumas method it is saying. So 0.25 gram is what? It is given as the weight of organic compound. Okay, gave 40 ml of nitrogen. So this is the volume of nitrogen which is being made over here at 300 Kelvin temperature and 725 mm of pressure. So this is, I am getting a P1. If the aqueous tension at 300 Kelvin is 25 mm, that is your another pressure it is giving. The percentage of nitrogen in the compound is what? So the simple formula is what over here? That is your P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2 over here. And after finding out that volume, what you have to do? You have to put in the formula of your Dumas method, which we have done right now. That is what over here? This particular formula. Got it? That first you have to write, take out the P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. From there you are going to get the volume, and then you have to find out the your percentage of nitrogen. Fine. Moving towards the this. Okay, so this is going to be your homework question. I want its answer in the text box in the comment section. If you are not able to do, then I will be sharing the answer over there. Next is in Geldar's method for the estimation of nitrogen present in a sample ammonia evolved from 0.75 gram of sample. So this is being given as the weight of the organic compound neutralized 10 ml. 10 ml means what? That it is being given as the your volume. And 1 molar means what? It is given as the molarity of H2SO4. The percentage of nitrogen in the soil is going to be. So you have to just put over here again what? The simple Geldar's method formula you have to apply over here. that is straight away you have to put the values over here in the formula. Okay, that is your molarity is being given, percentage you have to find out. Okay, so this question is also your homework question. Okay, anyhow its answer, okay fine, just try it and then I will be telling you what percentage you are going to get over here. Now let's move ahead to our next section, that is your salt analysis. As I have told you earlier that salt analysis means what? Salt analysis means that your given salt is going to be divided into two parts, that is your acidic radical and the basic radical. Now whatever the inorganic salt you are having, like over here I am having the inorganic salt like the AB type, so I am going to have the cation, the one with the positive charge, and another one is going to be anion, the one with the negative charge. So sodium, sodium ion, calcium ion, zinc ion, etc., they all are going to be my cationic part, which we called as a basic radical, and Cl minus Br minus your carbonate SO4 2 minus, they all are going to be your acidic radical, which are the anionic part. Now the very first thing what we do is the dry test and then we go for the wet test. In the dry test we have the color test, that is how it is looking like, whether it is a white in color or a blue in color or a green in color or pink in color. Then we do a dry heating test, that when you heated it in a dry test tube, dry, nothing is being added, what type of the smell came, whether it melts or not, like this. Then we have a flame test. From flame test we get a question over here on the coloration. Okay, then we have the borax bead test, charcoal cavity test and cobalt test. These are not very much important, we never get a question from here. Wet test, over here we get a question on the basis of the reagents only. Okay, so first of all let's do the your dry test. Color test. Whenever you are going to have any particular salt, what you are going to do? You are going to just look at that what color it is having. So if it is blue in color, these are basically a colored salts I have kept. Copper, if bright green color is there, nickel. If it is blue, red or violet or pink, it could be cobalt, pink, manganese. Iron is going to be light green or yellow or the brown in color. Okay, so these are the specific colored salts which we have. Other salts you can have the white in color or the creamy in color, which can be other than these salts. Fine. Then dry heating test. If in cold condition you are having a blue color and in hot condition you are having a white in color, means what? Anhydrous and hydrated form we are talking about, so it is going to be a copper ion. If green in the cold condition and white or yellow in the hot condition, then iron ion. White in cold and yellow in hot, then zinc. And pink in cold and blue in cold, then it is going to be cobalt. This cobalt is being asked sometimes. Copper, iron, they are very common, so usually it is not being asked. Okay. Then flame test. This flame test is important, as I have marked over there also, and you have to remember also this. This is important. These all. Okay, these all you have to remember. Now, flame test means what? That every metal is going to impart a certain color to the Bunsen burner flame. So you are supposed to heat it. Now, when you are going to heat it, your flame is going to give you a specific flame over there. Now, basically what we do, we take a platinum loop. Why the platinum loop? Again, because it is inert in nature. So you have just a wire structure with a loop made up of you'd make a paste of the given salt. After making a paste of a given salt, what you are supposed to do, you are going to just wrap it or just rotate your platinum rod on that particular paste. So it is automatically going to stuck on that loop, and then you are supposed to heat it. Now when you are going to heat it, your flame is going to give you a specific color. So the color is like what? That if you are going to have a magenta color, then it is lithium ion, golden yellow, then sodium ion, lilac color, potassium, copper ion, green with the blue center, copper, brick red or orange red, barium, apple green, strontium, crimson red. So sometime there is a possibility that we can get a question from here. Okay. Moving ahead, I have showed you the certain flames over here, so you can have a look on this. It is only for the reference. Next is a borax bead test. Over here, previously it was a part of our P block element also, but now the as the compounds are being deleted, so we do not study over there. Basically what happens that borax, which is a hydrated form, we heat it. Now when you are going to heat it, what happens, the complete 10 molecules of the water, they remove from the borax. Now further when you are going to heat it, it becomes completely dehydrated and it converts into a metaborate. Plus you get a glassy bead over here, a transparent sort of a bead over here. So oxides of some transition metals have the characteristic flame color test with this glassy bead colored metaborate of metal ion, which is of the formula this. For example, if you are going to have a copper, it is going to give you a blue color. If you are going to have the chromium, it is going to give you a green in color. Okay. So basically what happens over here, that this also you have to remember. If you are going to have a manganese, it is going to get a manganese metaborate. It is going to be of a violet or the pink in color. Nickel, if you are going to have, it is going to form a nickel metaborate. So it is going to be reddish brown in color. If it is going to be copper metaborate, then it is going to be blue in color, or it could be green. Cobalt metaborate, it is going to be blue in color. Iron metaborate is going to be yellow or yellowish brown in color. Basically, these are the preliminary tests which do not confirm that there is a surety that this particular element is present, but they just give us the rough idea over here that there is might a possibility that these particular elements might be present. These are the indications over there. Okay, so next is charcoal cavity test. So on heating a metal carbonate in a charcoal cavity, the carbonates are decomposed into metal oxide, which are colored residue. So cavity filled with metal carbonate, and this over here, and this is a charcoal block. So if you get a yellow residue, then it is going to be lead. If you are going to get a yellow residue when hot and white when cold, then zinc. White residue with the smell of garlic, arsenic. Brown residue, cadmium, and white residue glowing on heating can be the silver, calcium, barium, strontium, any of their carbonates. Okay, from here we never get any question over here. Then we have the cobalt nitrate test. In the case of a cobalt nitrate test, basically the residue of the charcoal cavity test, it is on heating, what you are going to get, you are going to get a oxide. So if you are having a zinc, then you are going to get a green in color, magnesium pink in color, aluminum is going to give you a blue in color. Okay. Now the hottest region of the Bunsen frame show in the figure below is, the question type over here is what? It is the region 2. Next is, which one of the following ions does not give the borax bead test? So we have seen that they all were having the borax bead test. Borax is what? It is already a transparent in color, zinc is white, so Zn2+. It is not colored. Which one of the following compounds formed in borax bead test? So basically we form a metaborate. Such type of the question we can expect. Which one of the following metal salts produces a blue colored bead in cobalt nitrate charcoal cavity test? So, blue color in charcoal cavity test we get in the case of the aluminum. So, option D. Okay. Now, these all were the physical testing, or you can say the dry test, which we just look, we smell, we touch, we saw the color, flame test we did, and we just got an idea that this cation could be present. Now further we have the wet test for the testing of our further clarifications that okay, now these are the possibilities. So for the wet test, prepare the clear aqueous solution of salt by dissolving it in water or a dilute HCl. Now cations are divided into some groups of for analysis, and the reagents which is used to detect all the cations of a particular group, like if I am saying group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6, and they are the particular group, so that particular reagent is going to called as a group reagent. In starting, I am just making a solution with the help of the water or the dilute HCl. Okay, that is for the complete. But sorry. But for a particular group detection, I have to use a particular reagent. So that is a group reagent. Now, say suppose if I am having a zero group. Now in zero group, the cation which is present is what? It is the ammonium ion. Okay. Now group reagent over here is what? Heat with NaOH solution. That's it. If you are going to heat it over here with the NaOH solution, you are going to get the ammonia gas. If you are getting ammonia gas over here, it means that your given compound may consist, focus on the word, may consist of ammonium ion. Still I am not confirmed, it may contain. Now say suppose if you did not got any smell of the ammonia, so you will move with that particular same extract only with the another one. So over here you can have the possibility of what? Silver, mercury or lead. These are the group 1 member. Now what you have to do? You have to add a dilute HCl or any soluble chloride solution. You are going to get a white precipitate. If you get a white precipitate, then you have a possibility of any one of them to be present. Any one of them to be present. There is a possibility that they may be present. Then we will be doing the confirmatory test. Okay. Now say suppose you do not get the white precipitate over here. Now you will go for the group 2. So your group 2 members are going to be what? Group 2 members are going to be, it can be lead, copper, cadmium, mercury, bismuth or arsenic, tin over here. Okay. Now the group reagent, H2 gas you have to pass in presence of dilute HCl. So basically when you are going to pass a H2 gas, it is going to give us something, a black coloration particles, a solution is going to become a blackish in color. So over here, if your solution becomes black in color, then copper, lead, silver, bismuth can be present. If it becomes yellow in color, then it is cadmium, and if it is arsenic or tin, then also it is going to be yellow in color. Now say suppose you do not get this also, so you will be moving ahead towards the next group, that is your group 3. Your group 3 members are going to be iron, copper, chromium and aluminum. Now your group reagent is going to be what? NH4OH solution in presence of the ammonium chloride. This you are going to take. If you get a reddish brown precipitate, then it shows that your iron hydroxide precipitate, it is iron is present. If it is green, then chromium. If it is gelatinous white, then it is going to be aluminum. Okay. Fourth group. Fourth group is going to be Zn 2 plus, nickel 2 plus, manganese 2 plus, cobalt 2 plus. Now what is going to be the group reagent? H2 gas in presence of ammonium hydroxide solution. So if you get a white precipitate, it means zinc sulfide, nickel, then black precipitate, manganese, then it is going to be pink or buff color, cobalt, again it is black. Now say suppose you do not get any of these, it means this group is also the absent. And coming to the fifth group. Now coming to the fifth group, you are going to have what? You are going to have the barium, strontium, calcium. Okay. So ammonium carbonate solution in presence of ammonium chloride or ammonium hydroxide. So if you are having a barium carbonate precipitate, strontium carbonate, calcium carbonate, they are going to be white in color. Okay. Then say suppose you do not get that also. So your magnesium, that is your group 6 element. What is going to be your group reagent? Sodium, hydrogen, phosphate in the presence of ammonium hydroxide. So you are going to get a white precipitate. So white precipitate means group 6 is present. So the simple thing, you are lucky one if you get 0 group or even the first group. If you do not got it, you have to continue doing that and continue doing that. Whatever the observation you are getting over here, according to that you are going to have that particular possibility and you have to stop at that group. If not, you have to again continue doing this. So what you have to remember, basically this complete chart you have to remember over here. This complete chart is important for us over here. What are the group members, cations you should know, what are the group reagents, and what type of the precipitate or gas or observation you are going to get over here. These all things you have to remember over here. Okay. So this is how we perform that was a chart that what is the possibility. Now how we perform. Original solution we have taken means you have taken your organic compound, dissolved it in a water, and then you have made a solution. Now in that particular solution I added a dilute HCl. On adding the dilute solution, I am having the two possibilities. In the one possibility, what is there? I can get a precipitate, and in the another possibility I cannot get the precipitate, isn't it? Now if I get a precipitate over here, it means what? My group 1 elements are present, and if I am not going to get any precipitate, it means that my group 1 elements cations are absent. So what I have to do? I have to just pass the H2S gas through my filtrate. Now on passing this H2S gas, again I am having the two possibilities. If I get a precipitate, my group 2 members are present and my group 2 members are all these. Another possibility, I am not having any precipitate over here. It means that my group 2 cations are also absent. So what I have to do? I have to take original solution, heat it with concentrated HNO3, add the NH4Cl followed by NH4OH solution in excess. So basically this is over here, what I have written over here is what? It is my group reagents. Okay, on these arrows, these are my group reagents. Okay, so what I am getting over here? I am getting again the two possibility. If I get a precipitate over here, my group 3 is present over here in the form of the hydroxides, and the next possibility is what? That no precipitate I am going to get. No precipitate I am going to get. So what I have to do? I have to pass the over here H2S gas. Now when I am going to pass the H2S gas, so it means my group reagent over here is this. Again I am going to have the two possibilities, that is group 4 is present. Group 4 members are this and they are present as the sulfides. Now, another possibility is what? That no PPT is going to come. If no PPT is going to come, what I have to do? I have to take a filtrate, and in that I have to add ammonium hydroxide and ammonium carbonate. Now again two possibilities. If I get a precipitate, it means group 5 members are present, which are barium, calcium and strontium, and they are going to present as the carbonates. Now, I did not get any over here. So, no precipitate, take the original solution to test for the group 6, that is your magnesium. Okay. Now, this was a complete procedure. Now, say suppose I got my group 0 observation, that I got something like the ammonia gas smell. So, what I will be doing? I am not going to move further. I will be doing a confirmatory test for the ammonium cation. So, how I am going to perform it? I am going to take what? Your ammonium ion. For that, I am going to take your NH4Cl. In that, I am going to add the NaOH. So, it is going to give you a ammonia gas. And you know that ammonia gas have a characteristic pungent smell. So, if that smell I am going to get, it means my ammonium ion is present. Another thing, you know that this ammonia is what? It is basic in nature. So, when you are going to bring a filter vapor, which is over here dipped in glass rod, if you bring with the HCl, it is going to convert into a white fumes of NH4Cl. And if you bring a CuSO4 paper dipped, then it is going to convert into a deep blue in color. Another test, ammonium ion is going to react with Nessler's reagent. Now, what is Nessler's reagent over here? It is the potassium hydroxide and potassium mercuric iodide. So, in this you get a basic mercury amido iodine, which is a iodide of Millen's base over here. So, basically you are going to get a brown precipitate over, this brown precipitate is over here you are going to get. Okay. Moving ahead. Now, my 0 group was not present, but I was having the group of the group 1. So, how I am going to do for? I got the white precipitate. Now, white precipitate can be of PbCl2, AgCl or HgCl2. So, what I have to do? I have to add the fresh water to it and heat it. On heating, if I get a soluble PbCl2, then it means lead is present. So, what I will do? I will be going for the confirmatory for the lead. So, I am going to take a hot solution of PbCl2, put a Ki, I am going to take a lead iodide precipitate, which is a yellow in color. If I take this chromium oxide, then it is also yellow in color. If I am going to put NaOH over here, I am going to get a complex over here, that is your sodium tetrahydroxoplumbate. So, which is going to confirm me that yes, this lead is present over here. Another possibility, that when I kept water and I heated, I got an insoluble precipitate. So, AgCl is soluble in ammonia. If it gets solubilized over here, it means AgCl is present. If not, then mercuric chloride. Now, AgCl I am putting ammonia, I got a soluble precipitate and then further AgI. If Ag2Cl2, it is going to give me a black color precipitate over here and soluble in the aqua regia. Okay, which is the combo of the HCl and HNO3 in the 3:1 ratio. Next, these are the further reactions. Now, say suppose my group 1 was not present, so I have to move for the group 2 and I got the observation for the group 2. So, what I have to do? I have to do the confirmatory test for the group 2. So, group reagent was what? H2S in the presence of the dilute HCl. So, I was having the possibility of lead sulfide, black in color. Now if it is black in color and gets dissolved in HNO3 over here, and on adding a dilute H2SO4 along alcoholic medium, it is going to give me a lead sulfate which is white in color. So it means lead is, the possibility of lead is being present over here. Okay. Then there could be a black precipitate of the copper sulfide. Putting a dilute HNO3, I am going to get a copper nitrate. And when I am going to put over here further HNO3, it is going to give me a sulfate. This sulfate on reaction with the NH4OH and adding excess of NH4NH, giving me a complex which is going to be a deep blue in color, which confirms me copper over here. Next, copper sulfate which is blue in solution, when putting it in a your acetic acid, so it is going to give me a hexacyanoferrate, which is what, chocolate brown complex over here. Okay, so which shows that copper is present. Then further for the group 3 only, NH4OH in presence of NH4Cl I am having, they are going to be in the form of the hydroxide. So if it is a reddish brown hydroxide, then it is iron, gelatinous white, then aluminum, and muddy green means that it is going to be chromium. Test for iron, they are going to be soluble in dilute HCl. So it is going to form a FeCl3, which further is going to give you a ferric ferrocyanide, which is a Persian blue in color. Okay. Another test, that is your blood red color when you have the sulfur and the nitrogen both over here, which we already did. Then test for aluminum, it is going to be soluble in the NaOH, and when you are going to put in the NaOH, it is going to give you a sodium aluminate. Fine. Moving ahead, test of group 4. Now there is a possibility that zinc, manganese, cobalt, nickel can be present over here. So in the case of the zinc, white in color, manganese sulfide buff in color, cobalt or nickel is going to be black in color. Group reagent is what? H2S gas in presence of NH4, Cl is going to be there. So if I got the white precipitate, it should soluble in the HCl and giving me ZnCl2. Further is what? ZnCl2 plus NaOH going to give me a zinc hydroxide precipitate, which is going to be white in color. If you are going to put a excess of NaOH, it is going to give me a sodium zincate. Okay. Now second ZnCl2 I am going to put over here in a potassium complex. I am going to get a white in color complex over here. Now for the nickel, it means I got a black in color. So nickel, HNO3 and HCl, and this further should be dissolved in aqua regia. So basically I got the NiCl2. Now further when I am going to got a over here put a DMG, that is your dimethyl glyoxime, followed by NH4OH, I got a complex over here that is going to be of a cherry red in color. This complex is going to be of a cherry red in color. Test of group 5, barium, barium carbonate precipitate, calcium, calcium carbonate, strontium, strontium carbonate precipitate. Now say suppose I got a barium carbonate. So in that when I am going to put a acetic acid, in that it should be soluble as your barium acetate. Now it is soluble in barium acetate over here, I have got. So further when I am going to put a over here K2CrO4, I am going to get a yellow precipitate over here, yellow precipitate over here of the barium. Okay. And when I am going to perform a flame test, it is going to give me a apple green color. Next, test of calcium. So white precipitate only, soluble in acetic acid, ammonium oxalate I am going to get over ammonium oxalate. When I am going to add, I am going to get a calcium oxalate which is white in color. Okay. For the magnesium, I am going to get over here the white precipitate on adding a ammonium hydrogen phosphate. So this is how we do the your anion cations. Okay. Now whatever the thing which I have showed you over here, they all are being done in this particular table. So basically what we have to learn? We have to learn this particular table over here. Got it? Now with this we finish the cationic part, that my cation is I got to know that who is my cation. Now I have to look for my anion. So qualitative analysis of salt is carried out through the reaction in which we can easily have the evolution of gas, change in color, formation of precipitate. Preliminary examination we did, and after that we have to go for the anions and cations, which we have done. Now over here, after the preliminary examinations, what we do over here, that we have to go for the cations and anions. So now first, if I am having a type 1 salt, so preliminary examination is going to be with dilute H2SO4 over here. Okay, so if the salt gets dissolved with H2SO4, then I am having a possibility of what? The possibility of a carbonate, sulfide, or my nitrite. So salt plus mixture of salt or dilute H2SO4. Now if you are going to have the evolution of a colorless gas which is odorless, which comes with Brix effervescence and turns lime water milky, then the gas is going to be what? CO2. If it is CO2, then I am having a possibility of carbonate anion present. If I am having evolution of colorless gas which is having a rotten egg smell, I am having a rotten egg smell. This gas turns lead acetate paper black, then it is a H2S gas and the possible anion is going to be sulfide. If I get brown fumes which turn acidified iodide solution containing starch solution blue, then it is nitro. It means NO2 minus anion is present. Got it? Now I got a carbon dioxide gas which turned the lime water milky. So what is my possibility? That carbonate is present. So I will be doing a confirmatory test for the carbonate. What I am going to do? I am going to take a sodium carbonate plus H2SO4. So I am going to get a sodium sulfate, carbon dioxide and H2O. Now when I am having a CO2 over here and then I pass it through my soda lime, it is going to give me a milky white color. When I am going to pass excess of the CO2 gas, this milky color is going to disappear over here due to the formation of the hydrogen carbonate. Okay. Now say suppose I got a rotten egg like smell, it means a sulfide. H2S gas release, sulfide anion is present. So Na2S, H2SO4, I am going to get a sodium sulfate, rotten egg smell. So lead acetate, H2S is going to give me a black precipitate, that is of the PBS and the acetic acid. Test 2, that is your sodium nitroprusside test. So remember one thing, we have already done it. It is going to give me a purple color over here. Okay, it is going to give me a purple color. Test 3 is sulfonilic acid. So over here, whatever the salt solution you are going to take, it is going to give you a 1-naphthylamine reagent test, basically it is. Okay. Now another possibility, I can have the nitro group present. So acetic acid HNO2 plus you are going to get a CH3CO minus. So first of all is going to be your diazotization reaction, that is sulfonilic acid is going to get, you are going to add. So diazotization is going to take place and then you are going to give a 1-naphthylamine. So azo coupling reaction you are going to get. So it is ultimately going to give you a red azo dye. This is going to be your red azo dye. Okay, this is a coupling reaction. Fine. Salt solution, in first step we are going to put a potassium iodide, then a starch solution, that acidified acetic acid, you are going to get a blue in color. So blue in color, if you are going to get, it means your nitro compound is nitro NO2 minus is confirmed over here. Okay. So basically you have to remember the your that colors and the complex formula. Now say suppose you are not having a H2SO4 soluble anion. So the preliminary examination over here, what we are going to do over here with concentrated H2SO4. Okay. So because if you look previously we did over here with dilute H2SO4. Now the another we are going to have with the concentrated H2SO4. A colorless gas with pungent smell gives dense white fumes when raw dipped in ammonium hydroxide is brought near the mouth of the tube. So it means HCl is present, HCl is coming out, it means chloride is present. There is a possibility. If reddish brown color gas along with pungent odor evolved on heating with mixture of solid MnO2, intensity of reddish gas increases and solution acquires the red in color, it means Br2 vapors, so bromide is present. And violet colored sublimates get deposited on the sides of test tube, it means iodine vapors, iodide is present. Now look, when it was dilute H2SO4, then we was getting a nitro group may be present as a nitrite. Over here, brown fumes with concentrated H2SO4, you are getting NO2 is present, but now it is going to be NO3 minus, that is your nitrate ion. Okay. Now confirmatory test of the chloride. NaCl you have taken with H2SO4. HCl gas is going to come when you are going to put ammonia, NH4Cl, which is are the of the white fumes. Test 2. Evolution of a light greenish yellow gas with effervescence on treatment with MnO2 and concentrated H2SO4. You are going to get, it means your chlorine is present. Basically the complete practicals are interrelated, yes. Test 3. NaCl acidified with HNO3 followed by AgNO3. You got AgCl precipitate which is white in color. AgCl precipitate NH4OH. So you got a soluble complex of the over here silver. This test is very important because they ask you the over here formula for the chromyl chloride. So salt plus your potassium chromate with concentrated H2SO4 gives you a red orange vapor of the chromyl chloride, through which when you are going to pass the gas and add a NaOH solution, it is going to give you a sodium which is a yellow solution. Okay, so this is important over here because they ask the chromyl chloride over here. So basically you got a chromyl chloride vapors which are the red and orange in color. Now Na2CrO4 solution you require to divide it into the two parts. If you are going to put a acidified lead acetate, you get a yellow precipitate over here. So it confirms the presence, and acidified dilute H2SO4 followed by amyl alcohol and 10% H2O2, it gives you a blue color of CrO5, that is your chromium pentaoxide over here. So get dissolves in amyl alcohol to give the blue color. Okay. Further, next is confirmatory test of the bromide ion. So evolution of a reddish brown fumes on heating salt with concentrated H2SO4. The fumes get intensify on addition of MnO2 on the reaction mixture. Further confirmation, if I talk about mixture of CCl4 or CHCl3 and chlorine in water, when you are going to add it into a salt solution or its sodium carbonate extract, you are neutralized by dilute HCl. So there you will be having the brown coloration in organic layer, which shows the presence of the bromine. Acidified sodium carbonate extract of the salt gives you a yellow precipitate of AgBr, which is partially soluble in NH4OH. So your bromine presence is confirmed. Confirmatory test of iodide. Violet color vapors of iodine with a pungent smell on heating salt with concentrated H2SO4. So sodium iodide H2SO4 is going to give you a sodium sulfate and the iodine vapor. The fumes get intensify on addition of the MnO2 to get the reaction, and further it turns a starch paper into blue. Then these are the few reactions which further we can perform parallelly for the confirmation. Now further confirmation we can do by getting a AgI precipitate, which is a yellow precipitate. Now this is going to be insoluble in ammonium hydroxide. Bromine was soluble in ammonium hydroxide, it is going to be insoluble. Then for the nitrate, this is very important over here, that is a small amount, basically you are going to take a small amount of the aqueous solution of salt, in that you are going to add a ferrous sulfate, concentrated H2SO4 along the sides of the tube. So you get a dark brown ring complex over here. So basically what you are going to get, a complex which is this, and this is a brown ring complex. This is important and you have to remember. Fine. Then for the sulfate, it is going to give you a BuSO4 or a PbSO4, which is going to be white in color. So with this we finish our salt analysis. Now the last part, that is the detection of the functional groups. Now the very first functional group, we are going to have the alcoholic functional group. When we are talking about the alcoholic functional group, we have the first test, that is your steric ammonium nitrate test over here. Now in the case of the steric ammonium nitrate test, we take a steric ammonium nitrate. If whatever the compound you are having, if it is having a alcoholic group, then it is going to form a red complex over here. The formation of the red complex shows you the presence of the alcohol. Lucas test is what? That you know, we have done in the chapter also, that you have the ZnCl2 in the presence of the HCl. If you are having a first degree alcohol, then in case no turbidity will be there. If you are having a second degree alcohol, you are going to have the turbidity, but after some time and on warming up, or you can say on heating it up. Then if you are having a third degree alcohol, then you are going to have a immediate turbidity. Next is your iodoform test. You know that you should have the over here methyl ketone group. Basically you should have the CH3 CH2 for the alcohol case, this part. Okay, so potassium hypoiodide, it is going to convert into aldehyde. Then further chlorine group is going to come. When you are going to put a NaOH, it is going to give you a CHI3, which is going to be a yellow precipitate. Okay, next is test for the phenolic group. So these tests are not going to given by the your alcoholic group, they are going to be by the phenolic group only. So ferric chloride test. So when you are going to add it in a phenol, you are going to get a violet complex which shows the presence of the phenolic group. Another one is a phthalene dye test. When you are going to take a phthalic anhydride, put a concentrated H2SO4, you are going to get a complex. Putting NaOH, you are going to get a pink in color. And when you are going to add excess of ammonia, it is going to convert into a colorless in the nature, which shows the presence of phenolic group. Next is your test for aldehydic or the ketonic group. So 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazine, eliminate the water molecule over here. So basically remember one thing over here, that over here if you are having a, if I talk about, I am having the first degree aldehyde. So first degree aldehyde, if I am going to have, it is going to solubilize over here. Why? Because I am going to have the, in NaOH I am going to have the acidic hydrogen. If it is going to be your second degree, it won't get solubilized because no acidic hydrogen. Third degree is not going to show this particular reaction. Fellings test. Fellings test, we take the aldehyde. Fellings test, you know, basically we have the Felling solution A and Felling solution B. So Felling solution A and B are what? It is the copper sulfate and the your Rochelle salt. When you are going to mix them, you get a Felling solution. So basically this particular is what it is from the A and B. So you are going to get a copper oxide, which is going to be your what you can say reddish red brownish coloration you are going to get. Skiff's test. Skiff's test is basically by the para-rosaline dye you can say test. If the aldehydic group is present, the pink color you are going to get over here. Now tolerance test, you know that if aldehyde is present, there will be the formation of the silver mirror. Okay. Then carboxyl group. So sodium hydrogen carbonate test. If you are going to have the effervescence of the carbon dioxide, it means that your carboxylic acid is going to be present over here. Ester test, that is your, if you are going to take a carboxylic acid and alcohol in the presence of a concentrated H2SO4, you are going to have the formation of the ester. So it is going to show you that carboxyl group is present. Basically esters are what? They are the fruity smell. Okay. Carbalamine test, you are going to take a amine or you take aniline kept in CHCl3 and KOH, you are going to get a isocyanide. Okay. Solubility test, take the HCl, you are going to have the solubilization. Azo dye test, there will be the formation of the diazonium chloride. Besides this, you can have the coupling reaction test also, which we have done, that is a azo dye test. Okay. So over here, this was all about this particular practical organic chemistry, the things which I have marked as a PTR, point to remember, and you can say that as the important, from there only we get a question. Your homework, do the DPP which is being attached with this lecture, practice the questions over here and just go through the things, make a one sheet over here that is having the formulas, group reagents and the colors, because from there only you are going to get a question. So I hope you enjoyed the lecture. So this was all about the practical chemistry. Let's meet soon in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.